Thank you. Okay. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, I'm sorry, I started on the second one. Here we go. Okay, and Molly, please take it away.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here and to be talking with you all. I'm grateful. As Esprit said, my name is Molly Barwick. I should add that also living with me and my husband and son are two, well, not the birds behind me, they're silent, but we do have two parakeets. So if you hear them in the background, I apologize. They do what they want. So sorry about that. But I am glad to be here, and I'll start off by just going over what I was hoping to talk about tonight. I'll start with a grounding statement that we always begin with in our Moms Demand Action meetings. And then I'll kind of talk a little bit, I'll just lay the land about what is happening as far as gun violence in the United States right now. I'll talk about a little history about Moms Demand Action and how we got started and how we're laid out, what we're doing here in Bloomington, and then hopefully some ways to get involved if you have interest in and are called from what you are hearing today. All right, thanks, Esprit. My turning. So I'll start off with that grounding statement. Like I said, this is what we begin every meeting with our intention and our purpose. So I'm just going to read through this. Our intention is to foster a robust presence of diversity, equity, and inclusion of and for all individuals and groups choosing to join our efforts. Our purpose is to work together to decrease gun violence and increase public safety across our nation. In our activities, we value diversity, we advance equity, and we demonstrate inclusion. We are a community. We are gun violence survivors, including victims and witnesses, change makers and advocates who come together in partnership to work toward a future that is free from gun violence. So that is a statement that we start each of our meetings off just to ground us in the work that we're doing. So glad to share that. So America's homicide rate is more than 26 times the average of other developed countries. I'm going to break down those statistics for you. I'm still reeling from the mass shootings this summer. I'm sure you probably are as well. But those mass shootings really are just a very small percentage of what gun violence looks like in America. On average, 111 people are killed by gun violence every day. And then looking specifically at children, that's 9 of those 111 are children and teenagers. When I first started this work in 2018, guns were the second leading cause of death for children in the United States. And that number has popped up to number 1. So they are now the leading cause of death for children in America. And a child is unintentionally shot in America every 36 hours. The presence of a gun in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of a woman being shot and killed by 5 times. And in fact, women in the US are 28 times more likely to be killed with a gun than a woman in any other developed nation. And when we look at incidents of homicide in America, we have to address the disproportionate toll it takes on people of color. Black Americans represent 56% of gun homicide victims and are 10 times more likely to be shot and killed than white Americans. That rate increases when you talk about Black men. Black men are 15 times more likely than white men to be shot and killed. Suicide, on the other hand, ends up affecting white men more than anyone else. 2/3 of firearm deaths are suicides, while with nearly 24,000 Americans shooting and killing themselves each year. So September right now is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So it's even more appropriate of a time for me to share a really interesting and impactful fact. Most people who attempt suicide do not die unless they use a gun. So 85% of suicides involving a gun result in death. And if you compare that with less than 5% that involve any other means of self-harm. So when you involve a gun in a situation when a person is in crisis, that can mean the difference between life and death. Also, for people who attempt suicide and do not die, usually 9 out of 10 of the people who attempt suicide and fail do not try again. So by keeping a gun out of a situation where someone is in crisis really is an important factor. So that gives you a very short look of what gun violence looks like in the United States right now. I'd like to back up a little bit and tell you some more about Moms Demand Action. So we are a grassroots organization that began right after the shooting in Sandy Hook in 2010. There was a woman, Shannon Watts, who actually lived in Zionsville, Indiana at the time. She was a mother of 5. And after that shooting, I think she was looking for ways to help and to get involved. And there was really no formal organization that was addressing gun violence that she could find at that time. So she just posted on Facebook that we as Americans can and should do more to prevent gun violence. A lot of people responded to that, and that resonated with a lot of people, and that movement grew. It involves moms, but we like to say we are mothers and others. So dads, grandparents, concerned citizens, anyone who wants to advocate to prevent gun violence is welcome. Since that first Facebook post, we now have chapters in every state in the United States and Washington, D.C. And we're broken down from there. So each state has a chapter, and then within the state, there are groups. So we have a group here in Bloomington. There's also one in Indianapolis and Fort Wayne, Muncie, Hamilton County, north of Indianapolis, and in South Bend. And then there's talk of another one reviving in Evansville, but that covers where we are as far as Indiana goes. And it gives you a layout about how we started. Oh, I should add to that, since we began from Sandy Hook, we are now under an umbrella of Every Town for Gun Safety. So that's a large gun prevention actually the largest gun prevention organization in the United States. And they also are an umbrella over Students Demand Action, Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and the Every Town Survivors Network. So let me talk a little bit more about what we do. Right now, we are in the thick of elections and political work. So I'll start with that. We advocate for safer gun laws. I just listed these 2 because they are kind of our top 2 goals right now, are universal background checks and restrictions on assault weapons. That is what we are working toward. There are a lot of other things that we would like to see, but those are the ones that we would like to see blanket. We have a program called the Gunsense Candidacy program, and it's beneficial twofold. For voters, it identifies candidates running for office that fit the values that we have as far as gun prevention awareness. So anyone who is running for a position, local, state, national, can ask for a survey. And they fill out this pretty extensive survey asking questions about their views on different gun policies. And if they're thoroughly vetted by Moms Demand Action and Every Town, and if they fit with our values, then they receive a notation called a Gunsense Candidacy notation. They're Gunsense candidates. We then compile all of those and put them on a website, so any voter can go to that website, plug in their zip code, and see which candidates are running for office in their area that fit their values as far as gun violence prevention goes. For the candidate, it's beneficial as well, because we, as volunteers of Moms Demand Action, then support them. So we canvass for them, we write postcards, we phone bank, we promote them on social media and respond to negative comments on their websites to support them even further and explain that they're not alone, that there are lots of people out there that think that they do. So we are working hard to get people elected who will also advocate for safer gun laws. So that is happening right now and keeping us pretty busy. We also promote current laws in place that are sensible and life-saving concerning gun violence. So Indiana was one of the very surprising, one of the very first states to enact an ERPO law, so an extreme risk protection order. Some people also refer to them as red flag laws. For Indiana, that started in 2005, and it was in response to a police officer who was killed after knowing that the person who shot him had an arsenal of guns. They already knew that, and that he was unstable. But there was nothing they could do at the time. Their hands were tied as far as taking his firearms away. So what an ERPO law does is allows loved ones and police officers to temporarily remove guns from the home of somebody who is just in crisis and could be a harm to themselves or to somebody else. So in Indiana, that law has worked. So the University of Indianapolis did a study after the law was enacted in 2005, and over 10 years, from 2005 to 2015, the rate of suicide went down by 7%. And that's great. Similarly, they did a study, the same university did the same research and did a study in Connecticut and showed within 7 years, their suicide rate had gone down 13%. And there could be a lot of reasons between that discrepancy. One of them probably is that this law is not well known in Indiana. It's not well known by citizens, and it's not well known by police officers. And so one thing that we are doing is a campaign of education to make people aware of our red flag law and to let them know if they do have a loved one who is in crisis, this is an option for them. And yeah, to let police officers know that that is as well. Another thing that we're doing is educating businesses on their rights as well. So you probably know that in July, the permitless carry law went into effect. And now it is legal to carry guns in a lot of places it wasn't before. But businesses still have rights, and a lot of them don't know that. So with appropriate signage and the legal language on those signs, businesses can prevent people from carrying guns into their place of work. The picture right here is of a group of our moms in one of our no guns in bars nights. We try to do those usually once a month or every other month, where we meet up, we have a drink and talk and catch up, and then we speak to the owner or the manager of that bar and explain to them their rights, because alcohol and guns do not mix. And so we try to encourage as many bars as possible to put up signage like this and to keep firearms out of their bars. This bar in particular is the Kaleo Rum Bar, where the shooting happened in April of this past spring. And this is the manager right here. And we are just explaining to him what he can do and his rights as an establishment. Moms Demand Action, through the years, we have had big campaigns to try to enforce this in places like Target, where it worked, Kroger, where we're still working on, Starbucks, where it worked. So those were all nationwide campaigns that we worked to try and keep firearms out of those spaces. So moving from the politics and law side, I'd like to talk a little bit about our very non-political bipartisan campaign called the Be Smart campaign. This one encourages parents and caretakers to safely secure and lock up their firearms to keep them out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. So Be Smart, SMART is an acronym. It stands for Secure All of Your Firearms, Model Responsible Behavior, Ask about the presence of unsecure handguns in others' homes, especially where your kiddos might be going on a play date or a sleepover. Recognize the role of guns in suicide, which I touched on a little bit earlier, and to share this message with others. I'll keep going on the next slide. Thanks. So we share this this campaign across Bloomington. It's one of the things that I'm really proud of. It's a message that everyone really gets behind. So everyone wants to keep kids safe. and don't want to get guns into people who shouldn't have them. So we have a very strong partner with MCCSC. Every year we go to as many open houses as we can, and we table. So you can see this picture here, 2 of our volunteers tabling at an open house. We hand out a ton of literature to parents at that point. We do presentations at PTO meetings on this topic. We also have a great partnership with IU Riley Pediatrics, and before the pandemic, we're giving a lot of presentations to the nurses and to their staff about the impact of what happens when you don't lock up a firearm. We've talked to the Boys and Girls Club staff, and then they disseminate that information on to parents and caretakers as well. We've given a presentation to the IU Police Academy every year for the last 4 years. And that came from the head of the police academy, the main teacher, had seen one of our presentations at his kids' PTO meeting and realized this was something that the cadets who were training to become police officers really need this information as well. For some of them, it was the first time that they would be owning a gun. For others, maybe they had never received this information, had been gun owners for years, but just didn't know. And as they were growing up and having children and families, that this would be important information for them. We also have a really strong partnership with the Bloomington Police Department, which I'm really proud of. They supply us with gun locks that we then give out free of charge at all of our tables. You can't really see it very well on that table there, but these gun locks that if someone is hearing the information that we're sharing with them for the first time and they were like, I have a gun at home, like they can take one right then and lock up their gun and then maybe as their child gets older, think of better ways to lock it up with a safe or a biometric safe or something like that they might need as kids get older. But this program, again, it's well received. People really get behind it. I will say when the only pushback that we ever get on this is when we are in schools and someone will explain what we're talking about and someone will say, oh, we don't have guns in our house, which is very much how I felt before I started this. But here in Monroe County, over 80% of households have at least one firearm. So it is so important when kids go over to other people's houses just to ask, if you have a firearm, how are you storing it? It's an awkward conversation at first, especially in our political climate, but it gets easier with time. And I think the more we normalize this conversation, the safer everyone will be. The only other pushback that we get about it sometimes is someone saying, I keep my gun in my bedside table or under my pillow because what if an intruder comes in? And to that, our response is usually if you are well trained on your firearm and able to get it out and put it together with your ammunition quickly enough, those few seconds in the middle of the night might be enough time for you to register that is your husband coming back from the bathroom or your teenager coming in late. You never really know. So having that extra second is worth the time. And often, again, the difference between life and death. So lastly, so those are the main campaigns and education that we do and work that we do on a regular basis. We also partner with community organizations that we intersect with as far as gun violence goes. So right now we're doing some work with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. It's Suicide Awareness Month right now. And so we are helping to raise money for them. We're going to join them in their Out of the Darkness walk, working very hard with them. We also table and promote the events with Pride, and we promote and fundraise for Middle Way House as well. And this picture here is a few of us during the holidays. We did a book drive for Middle Way House's Rise and their preschool. And we just put little bookmarks in there that had the Be Smart message for them as well. So we're always looking for more community organizations to partner with. So now I'll give you a couple calls to action and just some things that are going on. So if you'd like to stay up to date on the things that we are doing, we usually post upcoming ways to be involved, upcoming meetings, and also just facts, things that are going on. you can join our Bloomington Moms Demand Action Facebook page. It's a closed page, so when you ask, it will ask a few questions like your email address and your phone number. And that's only just to get you, we won't bombard you with emails or phone calls or sell your information. It's just to keep you in our Moms Demand Action system. So if you want to join, please do, we'll accept you. And if you're not really a Facebook person, that's where we do a lot of our just getting our news out. But if you'd like to receive emails too, we can talk about that afterwards as well. And I can get you on our email list. So we don't send too many emails, but that's another way to communicate and stay involved. Just some upcoming events that we have. I had mentioned we have a Moms Demand Action team that is going to be walking with the Out of the Darkness Suicide Prevention Walk. If you'd like to join our team, we would love it. Don't feel pressured to raise money if you don't want to. We would just love to have you come out and walk with us. It's a really moving event if you haven't been before. It's hopeful and heartfelt and just great. So if you can make it, please join us. Also coming up, we are going to be doing a screening of a film called Behind the Bullet. It follows 4 individuals who have been impacted by gun violence. And after the film, we will have a panel discussion with the director of the film and one of the subjects from the film, along with 2 faculty who specialize in gun violence prevention at IU. I'm sorry, I don't have more details. I promise I will. So if you get on our Facebook page, we will have more information coming up soon, but it's going to be on October 28th. We just are trying to finalize the location. It will be in the evening, probably around 7ish or so as well. We have a members meeting coming up on November 13th at the library. For that meeting, I think that probably the focus is going to be on a return to family around the holidays. So if you're anything like me, you have one of those uncles that likes to talk politics at the Thanksgiving Day dinner. And this meeting will offer some facts and some information that will allow you to, give a thoughtful response to something like, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. There are things you can say to that are thoughtful and kind and might change someone's mind. Lastly, this is the 10th year mark since that Sandy Hook shooting. So we will be commemorating that in December. We are still working on what that is going to look like, but again, it will be on our Facebook page coming up soon. And I'll just add to that all of those pictures and all the things that you saw that I was talking about are all volunteer led. So these are all volunteers who just are called to this cause and are working. And we are always looking for more people to get involved in whatever way they feel most comfortable. So if you have interest, we would love to have you. No one needs to be formally trained on any of it. There are a lot of training materials that Everytown provides for us. So you can educate yourself as much as you like, but a lot of it is sort of on the job work. And if you're interested, we'd love to have you. And I'll take questions if anyone has them, or I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
I have a question. Your Facebook group, is it a national group or is there a Bloomington Facebook group or maybe both?
There are both. So to know what's going on with our events, you'll want to go to that Bloomington Moms Demand Action for Gunsense in America, but feel free to join any of them. There's an Indiana one and a national one as well.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question for you. Where can we find the candidate list with voting season coming up?
Let me find that for you real quick. Can I put it in the chat?
Yeah, I think you can.
Okay, I'll do that real quick. Let's see. Yeah, it's so helpful. What part? Here we go. There you go. Thanks for asking.
I had a question for you, Molly. Our congregation was very concerned about Indiana passing the permitless conceal and carry that became effective July 1. and wanted to know a little bit about any work that you all did as Moms Demand Action around that, and anything that people can still do, because it feels, I feel like it feels very hopeless when those kinds of things happen.
Yeah, that was a really, really disappointing time. Backing up a little bit, similar legislation has gone through or has been on the table for like a decade now. And we've been able to push it back and push it back and push it back. And I feel like a lot of the work that we do at the Indiana State House is defense, very much so. This time we weren't able to push that. And there were, I think, maybe 3 or 4 bills with similar terms this time, and we were not able to push it back. And I mean, it was dramatic. So we had moms in their red Moms Demand Action shirts at the State House every day testifying, alongside a lot of law enforcement that were also testifying against this. And the lawmakers weren't listening to any of it. Interestingly, I just want to get my facts straight with this. It was in committee, and the committee chair, I forgot her name, a Republican woman, left it in committee. She just sort of left it to die there. There was no vote on it. It wasn't turned down, but it wasn't approved. And then they added the wording to another bill. A few lawmakers added the wording to another bill that was already going up, and that's when they came up to a vote. So, I mean, it's very disappointing. It was disappointing the way that it all went about. It was disappointing that so many people up there who came up to testify and spent their time driving up. I mean, law enforcement, who a lot of these lawmakers are saying that they backed the blue, and they did not at this vote. So we continue to at times call for a change in this bill. After Uvalde, a bunch of us wrote to the governor again and said, please reconsider this. Anyone is welcome to. I mean, I try hard to very often show my approval and my dissatisfaction in the people who represent me. So I think the more of us who can get our voices heard to them, the better, because I think the other side is doing that as well. So just letting our lawmakers know what you think and where what you're thinking about that is what we can be doing right now.
Molly, thank you very much for information. I just wanted to add that years ago, the Be Smart people gave a presentation at our church. I think Fran was here. It was not well attended, but it made a very lasting impression on me.
Oh, Nancy, thank you for remembering that. Yes, Fran was integral in getting us there. I was so grateful for that. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be there. It's a powerful presentation. And again, there's no politics involved, and it's a lot of people can get behind that one, which is great. Thank you. Thanks for remembering it.
Yeah, Nancy, thanks. I think it's also maybe not necessary, but important to point out that Moms isn't necessarily against people owning guns. It's just, being responsible for them, and, not, if you want to have a gun to target shoot or hunt, or not that I approve of that particularly, but, it's not an anti-gun group. It's a anti-gun violence group. So.
Thank you for pointing that out, Fran. It's spot on. That is true. And we kind of try to put our money where our mouth is, where with giving out gun laws, it's fine. We support the Second Amendment. We just want people to be safe and smart. So thank you for saying that. It's true.
I have another question for you. When you we're talking about, going home for holidays and talking to so-and-so because they have like a political belief of something. What are some, outside of the US, what are some countries that your group looks to when being this is what, maybe not model exactly, but what we want to try to model? What country comes to mind?
That's a good question. I saw an article the other day that was talking about what it comes down to our constitution, right? There are very few countries that have the right to bear arms written into their constitution. There's one of them, maybe the UAE. I want to say Mexico, but I'm not going to remember off the top of my head. But that's a main point with most people. It's in our constitution. And for a lot of people, it is part of their identity. I think because of that. So I haven't thought, as far as, as an organization, I haven't read or heard anything about what we would model after. Within the United States, there are states that are doing this better than others, right? I mean, there are states with less gun violence than other states, and that is specifically because of laws and policies that they have in place. The less guns there are in a space, the less shootings there are going to be. So yeah. But I'll see if I can find that article. I can send it to Esprit to show you about the constitutions and across the world that have this in them.
Molly, can you just address how the local MDA goes about like fundraising, or how we can support you here?
That is such a kind question. Thank you so much. A fellow volunteer put it very well. We are very good at, so with the money that we earn or that we fundraise here in Bloomington, I just want to be very clear, at least half of it goes to our national organization. And that is actually really important to every town. And that is important because they are a leading research group on gun violence. So a lot of statistics on gun violence come from every town for gun safety. So half of our fundraising goes to them. And they also have lobbyists who in DC and who are working very hard, and lawyers working very hard on this. So if you were to go to our Moms Demand Action website and click that this is specific for Indiana, half of it would go to national and half would stay in Indiana. And then you could specify Bloomington. So you can do all of that on the momsdemand.org. And then locally, we don't do too much active fundraising locally for our group. We do it more on behalf of other organizations here. So we promote the AFSP and Middle Way House and Pride and those sorts of organizations who are impacted by gun violence. So I would also encourage you to give to those organizations as well. There are times that we ask for, we always need volunteers, we need time, but we will ask for in-kind donations for some of our events. And we always put those on the Facebook page. And that would be, if you want to donate, we have a big event every June called Wear Orange, where we recognize gun violence victims. And we ask people, can you give a roll of orange ribbon, things like that to hold these events. And we always post on those on our Facebook page and ask for help that way too. But thank you for asking that question.
Thank you.
Are there any other lingering questions for Molly? All right, well then let's give her a round of virtual applause.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for allowing me to speak. Yeah, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
So I will, I suppose I'll go ahead and end the recording now. And if